Announcements, general announcements about some upcoming events. On June 24th, we're pleased to present Robert Spencer, director of Jihad Watch. Those of you who know him, he is just a seminal thinker and writer with regard to the subject of Islam and jihad, and really nobody knows the area, knows the subject area better than he. His topic will be on June 24th, Our Self-Inflicted Wound. The Arab Winter Comes to America. His most recent book, just published about a month ago or so, is The Arab Winter Comes to America. Book sale and signing will begin at 6:45. Books will be here. He's bringing them down, available for purchase. $20 per volume. I can tell you it's cheaper than buying it at Barnes & Noble. Book will be $20. The event will be $15. General event will start at 7:30. And he's widely published. He speaks all over the place. He's the vice president of the American Freedom Defense Initiative and a number of other things. He writes for PJ Media. Right, Roger? He writes for PJ Media. He writes weekly columns. He's done so for about 10 years. He's been in Human Events, the San Francisco Examiner, Los Angeles Times, New York Post, Washington Times, Dallas Morning News, etc., etc., etc. You'll find him on television. He's just absolutely terrific, and we're very, very lucky to have him coming next Tuesday, June 24th at 7:30 p.m. for the general event. 6:45 if you'd like to come to the book sale and signing. And we're going to take a little break over the summer. Come September, we have a huge, huge event upcoming in the planning stages right now, but we do have commitments from all of the speakers. We will feature a national security panel right here. Our participants will be former Deputy Commander of Pacific Forces, U.S. Pacific Forces, Major General Paul Vallely. Former United States Air Force Vice Chief of Staff, Lieutenant General Tom McInerney. Returning, father of Delta Force and former Deputy Secretary of Defense for Intelligence, Lieutenant General Jerry Blackhawk Down Boykin. Just confirmed last night, probably the second most seminal and influential person in terms of free speech on the European continent, Elizabeth Savage-Wolf. And our moderator for the evening, I'm proud to say, returning Lieutenant Colonel Alan West will be here to moderate the entire program. Matter of fact, when I mentioned this opportunity, Representative West, he had something else on his calendar, and he turned to his calendar person and said, change it. We're going to Stoughton. So that's what ended up happening. I will tell you right now, it will be a three-tier event. Because of the concerns of the event, I will tell you it will not be inexpensive. It will be an expensive event. We haven't exactly set the prices yet, but once we do, and once we get everything all set, emails will go out a number of times over the summer. Okay? The next upcoming event, though, is June 24th with Robert Spencer. Roger Simon is the founder and former CEO of PJ Media. He's an American novelist. He is a screenwriter, 10 novels, number of screenplays, president of the West Coast branch of Penn, served on the board of directors of the Writers Guild of America, on the faculty of the AFI and the Sundance Institute. Academy Award nominee as well, and he was nominated for the Academy Award for co-writing the screenplay 1989 film Enemies, A Love Story. His topic this evening, Through the Hollywood Lens, Reflections of American Values, Past, Present, and Future. My friends, please welcome Roger Simon.
Yeah, I'm glad I know the topic now. When I speak, people always ask me a lot of questions about Hollywood. That's really not the most interesting part of things. So what's really interesting is our culture And what we're suffering through right now, I think probably many of you knew about the late Andrew Breitbart, who was quite a gadfly and a media original who also did something called the Drudge Report at my house most of the time. Anyway, Andrew said something very interesting. He said a very simple phrase that politics is downstream of culture. And I think you get what he means by that. I mean, essentially, you can't change the society until you change the culture. I mean, we like to think we can, maybe we can a little bit, but really, academia and we in Hollywood have already ruined it for everybody else. So, what I'd sort of like to talk to you about, and I'm about to, as I said to some people downstairs, I'm, as usual, very late on a book contract, so I'm about to start writing it. And the thing that troubles me, and it's very related to media, Hollywood, and politics, and everything, is what it is that makes us change. What it is, because we're in a day today, this is a monumental day. This is the day that Hamas has been recognized by John Kerry.
Oh.
Yeah.
And that's literally what happened just hours ago. Because
And our president.
The Palestinian Authority and Hamas have joined forces, and the U.S. State Department has said, that's okay, we'll deal with you. Instead of what we would hope our country would do, which is say, no more money for you guys, or something worse. But at least that. But no. Now, why are we living in this culture, or why is it that I have to come to a group like this, where most of the people knew that was happening, and when we're looking at your faces, you disapprove of it, as I do. But why is it we can't get our friends and neighbors to understand this, something as simple as this? What is the barricade that has been created in our culture? People being able to receive basic information that we did as children and processed in a very different way. I was thinking about it just yesterday. I was in Philadelphia, and I went to, for the first time in my life, to Independence Hall. For the first time in my adult life. I guess I went with my father when I was 8 or something. And I was incredibly moved by it, because all these people had incredible ideas about freedom and liberty, and they've been squashed. Really, and what has squashed these ideas is the culture. Because if the culture hadn't squashed it, the public would still know something about it. I mean, not everybody is like this audience and wants to go to lectures. You know, a lot of people, as we know, don't want to do that. They want to sit and watch TV. However, a lot of people do. And why is it that it's been closed down to such a heavy degree that people have forgotten what the first principles of this country were? And I'm not talking about being a Tea Party member, although I got to meet tons of Tea Party people, including Colonel West, I guess, if you could call him a Tea Party person. But I'm not even that. All I'm talking about is very basic, simple, loving of freedom and liberty. Why did that get squelched? Now, this bringing us around to Hollywood. Hollywood, of course, was the great exporter of that. If you remember the movies you watched as a kid that went around the world, they were all about that. And a lot of them were about how great this country was. And I include, when I say great this country was, I mean movies that advocated civil rights in a great way. I mean, The Kill a Mockingbird, movies, all kinds of movies like that, all of which we loved. And all of which said great things about America. Because a country that could overcome its racism, which we largely did, and have a civil war, and largely deal with that problem, is a great place. But now we've reached an era where we're criticizing ourselves constantly. I don't know how many of you here are, because it's an older group, are familiar with the term microaggression? Well, if you're not, get used to it, because it's the phrase of our times. I'll tell you what a microaggression is. if you're on a college campus and you say to the girl next to you who happens to be Japanese American, could you help me with my math? That's a microaggression. Because your assumption, according to this new world that we live in, you're aggressive toward her because you think that she's Asian, she knows her math. All right, here's another interesting microaggression. I see my cousin Robert is here, and we both share a background at Dartmouth College. Now, we're outgoing shortly in a day or two. At Dartmouth College, not more than, I guess, about 3-4 weeks ago, a sorority house called Phi Gamma something, I don't know what, well, anyway, decided it was going to have a party. You know this story? They're going to have a party, and it was for coronary research, benefit party. And they decided to call it a Fiesta because they're Phi Gamma. Anyway, something that would have been met with in most of our times largely a shrug. I mean, you wouldn't have paid, I don't know, you say, oh, Fiesta, okay, can I come with it? End of story. Now, a Mexican-American undergraduate young woman protested, and this was a microaggression because the word fiesta is not supposed to be used by non-Latinos, and that was the end. And the event was closed down. I think it's absurd on the part of the college. I mean, just ridiculous. But and if you look up, as I did in the online version of the Oxford Dictionary, you will see that the word fiesta has not surprisingly been in the English language for literally close to a century. So it's not a word that anyone in this room finds particularly exotic or derogatory toward Latinos. I mean, does anybody? Oh, it's a fiesta. Oh, that's okay. Next. It's nothing. But we're living in this world where all of these things have become, well, that's the term, microaggressions. Now, this is the end of liberty and this is the beginning of fascism, basically. And we're living in that, and we better watch out. And those of us in the media bear special responsibility. But it's very, very difficult, I can tell from my own personal experience, to do things to correct this. Because we got involved in PJ Media, which was originally Pajamas Media, started really in chitter-chatter between friends around 2004. And what had happened was that in the wake of 2011 and 2001, a bunch of us had just gone online and started blogging about our opinions. I did it actually for a much more self-interested motive. I had a novel coming out. I thought it might promote the novel, but it didn't. However, it did get a tremendous amount of attention, and a lot of people started reading what I was writing because I was dealing with political change, my own. But a lot of people were going through change because of September 11th, because a lot of people were reconsidering what their beliefs had been. So we all, a group of us who became very popular immediately after that, being Americans and entrepreneurial, said to each other, why don't we make some money out of it? But there was another motivation, and that was, let's have some real civic dialogue that's been missing in this country. Let's go for it, because we all thought, well, there's right-wing publications and there's left-wing publications, and we all know that there's the Nation and the National Review, and et cetera, et cetera. Why don't we actually try something different? That is, get a bunch of people together that we thought were right, and on both sides, and let's have at it with each other in a respectful manner, and have the audience, you know, see what they're going to think of it, and weigh the ideas, and we'll be back to Athens, right? Well, here's what happened. Within about 8 months, everybody on the right quit. Interesting. Not everybody. A couple of people stayed if I would pay. I was the one who, de facto, for reasons I've never been able to quite understand, ended up being CEO. However, I was the one who had to deal with the fact that they would stay if they were paid more money. More money than the people on the right, which didn't feel fair to me. We weren't paying people very much money anyway in those days. And that was the end of it. In other words, there was no desire on the part of the left in our country to have dialogue. And I think that's fascinating. And that, well, listen, that's only my experience. Other people will say that they've had other experiences. But oh, the people, oh, excuse me, the people on the left quit.
Okay.
Oh, excuse me.
Yeah, you said right.
I'm sorry. No, they either quit or they demanded an exorbitant. In a couple of cases, I paid them an exorbitant thing for a short period of time, and then we got fed up. But no, the left did not want to deal with dialogue. They just did not want to deal with it, and which is one of the great problems of our time. I mean, it's a tremendous problem because here we are like in a religious institution, of course. Now, I would imagine a large number of people here are Jewish because this is a synagogue, but some people aren't. Fine, but you've come here for an evening of political chat or lectures of Hollywood politics and all that stuff. However, most of the people that I know, including family members of mine, I should say, and friends of decades who are on the left, will not discuss issues with people on the right. They will not discuss it. Now, okay, I see heads nodding in here. We've all gone through this. Now, what I'm going to try to wrestle with in this new book is, Mr. Gorbachev, tear down that wall. How do we do that? Well, I can't say I'm sure. But one way, of course, is the arts. Because you can go to a movie or see a comedy of some sort and be part of the audience and don't realize what you're seeing, really. Now, how does this, Hollywood though is legendarily discriminatory against conservatives. Now, everybody knows about this, about it. It's not entirely true. Hollywood is a business. So, Clint Eastwood is a conservative, and if he says to Sean Penn, "Will you be in my movie?" Sean Penn says, "When do you want to start, sir?" I mean, it's not. But then again, very few people in the world are Clint Eastwood. On the other hand, the world is changing out there slightly. There was a group, I don't know if any of you heard of it, called the Friends of Abe. Which I was involved for a while, but this group is rather large, actually, and it was supposedly secret. Like it was like an underground organization, which was kind of funny because about 3 years ago, they had a party for 1,000 people. 1,000 people at an outdoor party in Hollywood as a secret. It's kind of, almost like ridiculous. In fact, Eric Cantor was there at the party, various other people who are very well-known politicians. So it was, it's not really a secret. I see people here in Stoughton, Massachusetts have heard of it, so it can't be much of a secret, and it never really was. Although the idea of it being a secret was that people were going to lose their jobs for coming out. So what happened was that there would be these luncheons monthly at a restaurant in the San Fernando Valley that were sort of like out of, I guess, the Inquisition or something. Because what occurred is at the luncheon there would be about 24 people and newcomers to the Friends of Abe. And then there'd be a few people standing around and greeting them, some of whom were very known faces like John Voight or Gary Sinise, and others who were like me, who were just writers, you don't know what the hell they look like. But then people would come up and tell their story. And they would say, "Oh, I was discriminated against, and boy, I'm a great actress, and I never appeared in any movie that you've seen because I voted for Bush. Well, it wasn't true. It was true that she may have voted for Bush. That probably was true. But what isn't true, that's not the only way someone doesn't appear in a movie. Unfortunately, Hollywood is a terrible place for most people. You have to be phenomenally lucky and hit it at the right moment to succeed. And then you don't succeed the next week. So it's not like, I would say there is discrimination against conservatives, but if everybody is being discriminated against like this part of it is the conservative part. But it was particularly bad for people on the lower end of the food chain and for people who were working stiffs essentially of the entertainment industry, of which Los Angeles there are many, because it's a big city, also a big industry. Those particular people were the ones who suffered most because of this, because they were like workers in most industries, very often replaceable by someone who towed the line and said, because there was a certain point that it's gotten better because we live in a country now where Barack Obama is not real popular anymore.
Yes.
Now we know this, and Hollywood also knows this. Even though there are many members of Hollywood who are the biggest donors ever to Barack Obama, they also, are obsessive readers of the papers and watch the news. They're like everybody in this room, and they realize the way the things are going. And also, more than they care about anything, they care about their own success. So this actually provides an opening for conservatives in Hollywood. But what is the big closing for conservatives in Hollywood? And I've been involved in this because I've been involved trying to start another company, heaven help me, is that people on the right are not used to being entrepreneurial in the arts. They distrust the arts. I remember this from when I was going to college. I mean, the more conservative young guys in Dartmouth weren't going to the plays and the movies and doing that stuff. They were into other stuff, and you see that the arts are not funded largely by conservatives. So what that has created is that a certain side of the political sphere then are the financiers of the arts. And as everyone really knows, who is it with that famous line, freedom of the press belongs to the man who owns one? The product that's going to come out the other end, if the people who are doing it are, the liberal persuasion is going to be generally liberal product. So it's more the business end that has hurt it. At the same time, a whole generations of conservative artists have not been trained. I mean, it's almost accepted. I remember, I went to the Yale Drama School. I can't imagine when I went there, anybody, it might have been 5% Republicans. I mean, they just weren't there. And then later on, in eras in Hollywood, I mean, you would, I'm not going to use the exact words that you would have at a Hollywood meeting, but, you would sit down in a meeting to pitch a story, and before you went to pitch a story, they would say, well, would you like Perrier, Pellegrino, blank Bush, and wasn't the traffic terrible? I mean, it was almost like automatic, which was a very odd situation for me as I started to change politically, because I couldn't say, when they said blank Bush, I voted for him. I just had to sort of nod and say, yeah, Pellegrino. Because later on, though, when PJ Media started, of course, they all knew I was the other way. I did not, I was not, I came out very big. And I didn't do it on purpose. It's not my style. I I just wrote what I thought, which is what I thought writers were supposed to do. And I didn't read, also, in those early days of the internet, very few of us realized how many people were reading us. We did not know. And I started to realize it because I have a place up on Bainbridge Island. I used to wear a bigger fedora than this one. And people started coming up to me on airplanes and say, "Hey, I read your piece of blah, blah, blah." So that never happened writing a screenplay. Never, ever in my life. But from all this stuff, people were recognizing me, and then I got very nervous because I realized that what you say is going out there in a huge, amazing way. It's a real irony. I was talking to the rabbi about this earlier, about the whole new school of media and opinion that's arriving. And I hope it happens in film too. Film's going to be harder because of the money. But with news and opinion, they're a wholly different alternative universe now. Both universes are not good. I would say they're not good for one reason. The mainstream media, the ones we know and love as the Washington Post, New York Times, the things we all grew up with, are so biased they're ridiculous, almost comical. On the other hand, there's your conservative blog media, also biased. Now, the original thing was that the old media had lots of money and could do investigative reporting. They would tell you things like, Watergate. Right? Now the truth about all those things I discovered when I started to become the CEO of one of these things is there's no such thing as investigative reporting. That's baloney. Nobody can afford to do it. It's way too expensive. Secondly, the only reason it happens is that somebody calls you up. The reason Bob Woodward and Bernstein became historical figures and had a movie made about them is they got called up. That's it. They didn't sneak into any place and find out anything by themselves. And the stories that we wrote about pajamas media, where we broke a few, were because people called us up. That was the secret. I mean, it wasn't because we figured out anything brilliant or we knew how to do things. Nobody does. And which is the problem we have today. So much is going on with our government. Just today, it's amazing that no one has the financial or physical capability of tracking it down. It cannot be. The reason Eric Stoughton, Stoughton became this huge international figure is because he called up some people. They didn't go to him. He called up the Guardian and he called up the various people that he linked to. I mean, there's no way we can do it. And this is sort of a topic, but we're in a very difficult position. I mean, look at all the things that our government is doing that we discovered in the paper this morning. 5 members of the Taliban are out. Oh,
wow.
No one had any warning of that. And no one will. And there's no, I was just saying, there's very little, there's only one person who's a friend of mine who I recommend to everybody to read his work and keep an eye on it, because he really does do something, named Eli Lake, who writes for the Daily Beast. But it's one of the reasons it's very hard to find these people is that the New York Times and the Washington Post that still marginally have the money to pay those people are paying for lies. I say that boldly because that's what they're paying for. And nobody else has the money to pay them. So the information flow is dead. Speaking of which, I'll just say one last thing that I love to take your questions and I'll answer Hollywood stuff. The PJ Media started a few years ago something called the Walter Duranty Prize in honor of this man, Walter Duranty, who was the New York Times Moscow correspondent in the 20s and 30s who lied about Stalin's mass murder of the Ukrainians and won the Pulitzer Prize for it. So we decided to set up an annual prize